And again, this is going to be an interactive session. So I want you to feel free to share your thoughts, your questions. It's going to provoke a lot of things. So we want to extend not only the learning from the speaker, but the learning of what's going to happen in and among you ladies. So we are recording this session. So I'm going to ask when you do have something to share, would you please wait for one of us to come around with a microphone? I know we can all hear each other here, but we want to record the value of what you have to share as well. So before I introduce the individual who's going to introduce our speaker, would you please join me in prayer as we open up the session? Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this glorious day, and thank you for appointing each of us to be here together, Father. We invite you here to lead us by your Spirit, Father. I ask for your hand of protection on those that are still making their way. I ask that you clear the roads so that they can get here quickly and safely. And I also ask for favor for all of us as we leave this place today. Lord, please put your hand upon our speaker, open up her mind and her voice to share wisdom that started with you, Father. And I pray for your provision and your protection and your guidance over the next year that lies ahead, Lord, as we prepare to step into it and everything that you have for us. And we thank you for the gift of your Son and this season that we have to celebrate Jesus's birth, Father. We give you the glory for today and for each of our days, and we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. Now it is my honor to welcome the Director of Alumni Relations for the Graduate School of Education and Psychology, Dr. Renee Dorn, who will welcome our speaker.
Good morning, everyone. Yeah, you know what? Let's do that one more time. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. I know it's a little chilly out here, but our speaker is gonna fire us up. That's what's gonna happen. All right. So I'm Director of Alumni Relations, Dr. Renee Dorn, and it's always a pleasure to come to our lifelong learning sessions, to meet all of you, to get a chance to talk to you, and to thank the alumni who always have the opportunity to come and join us for these sessions. So I thank you to all of the alumni who are here today. And it is my pleasure, and I always thank Vanessa for allowing me to be able to introduce the speakers for these sessions. So today, we have as our speaker, Dr. Judy Ho Gavaza. She is a triple, let me say that one more time, a triple board certified and licensed clinical and forensic neuropsychologist. Yes, that's very impressive, isn't it? And she's also a tenured associate professor at Pepperdine's Graduate School of Education and Psychology. She is an author. So the first book was Stop Self-Sabotage, and that came out in August of 2019. It details a scientifically driven 6-step program that has been translated into 7 additional languages around the world. Her second book, which was co-authored with Max Dubrow, is titled, I'll Give It to You Straight-ish. Don't you love those ish titles? I love it. I'll Give It to You Straight-ish, What Your Teen Wants You to Know. And that was published in November of 2021 and contains Dr. Judy's evidence-based tips to help parents raise healthy and resilient teenagers. Very important. I'm going to get that book for my sister. And then Dr. Ho Gavaza's third book, The New Rules of Attachment, which focuses on healing insecure attachment styles at any age to optimize well-being, career, goal attainment, and relationships with family, friends, and colleagues. And this will be published by Hatchet Book Group in March of 2024. So look out for this book. That is coming. That is coming. Dr. Ho Gavaza maintains a private practice in Manhattan Beach, California, where she specializes in comprehensive neuropsychological assessments and is an expert witness in courts. Yes. She regularly appears as an expert psychologist on television, podcasts, radio, and contributes to other media, including print and electronic periodicals. She was a co-host on the syndicated daytime television talk show, The Doctors. co-host of CBS's Face the Truth, and host of the Supercharged Life podcast. Dr. Hogavaza is a two-time recipient of the National Institute of Mental Health Services Research Award and a diplomate of the American Board of Professional Psychology, American Board of Pediatric Neuropsychology, and National Board of Forensic Evaluators. It is my pleasure to bring to the podium, please help me, please join me in welcoming to the podium, Dr. Judy Hogavaza.
So great to see you, and thank you for that introduction, and thank you, Vanessa, for having me back. Um, I feel very grateful to be with all of you today. So thank you so much for being here. And I really wanted to design a session for us that was going to be really interactive, get us talking. And maybe that's just coming from my own personal preference of going to talks and wanting some actionables and being able to really work at something when you're learning. So I really hope that we have a fun session today. And when Vanessa and I were talking a few months ago about putting this together, she actually came to me with an idea and she said, you know, I remember some things that you said when you were publishing your first book and some of the other things that you talked about since then. And I kind of like that you had this whole thing about having beef with vision boards. I want to know more about what that is. And I was like, okay, that sounds cheeky. Obviously, vision boards are a very helpful tool. And there's different ways that people can utilize vision boards in different areas of their personal life, professional life, or both. But I do think that oftentimes, especially as I'm talking to my friends and colleagues about their use of vision boards, my patients about it, that sometimes it misses the mark. And that's really where I guess, the central theme or thesis comes from of what are we talking about here in terms of beef with vision boards? What does that really mean? And so I want to welcome you to this session to really talk about visioning in a purposeful and actionable way and translates to things that you're actually going to see more concretely. I think that those are some of the issues sometimes with vision boards, but let's get right to it. So you have handouts in front of you, I believe. And I want this to be a truly interactive session. So please jump in at any time. If you have questions, you don't even have to raise your hand. You can just jump right in. I really like that. So don't worry about interrupting me at all. And there we go. I just need to push it a little bit closer. All right. So my beef with vision boards. So a couple of highlights why vision boards might not work for some people. The first thing is that there may be a lack of action. So you put this beautiful vision board together. It's so much fun doing the project. It's really creative. But then there's no concrete steps that are built in. And that can lead to limited effectiveness of the vision board. Oftentimes, there's also no strategy for moving forward. So you put the vision board together, it looks lovely, but you don't have the specific steps of how you're going to actually get to these huge goals. So that can also cause it to not be as effective. Unrealistic expectations. So it's so interesting. Positive psychology was a huge movement in this last 20 to 30 years, and especially this last 10. And I think there's a lot to be said about it because when psychology was solidifying itself as a science, we tried to align ourselves with the medical community. And so it was a lot of focus on diagnoses and pathology and treatment. And I think although it solidified our place in a scientific field, it caused people to maybe sometimes neglect or forget about strengths, right? So positive psychology was a movement that came out of we need to recognize strengths also. But now there's this concept called toxic positivity. Have you guys heard about this? Yeah. So it's kind of interesting. Okay. So I'll explain. It's interesting, right? It's like, okay, now it's too much of a good thing. Like we course corrected too much. And the idea is sometimes when really things are going on and you really do have stress and you're just telling somebody to think positively or like just be grateful, it's a nice idea, but in the moment you're so stressed and then we beat ourselves up and become kind of inundated with these feelings of self-shame, like, oh yeah, I should be grateful. There's so many people who have it way worse than me. What's wrong with me, right? And so that's how toxic positivity can arise, because then you still feel like you have to put on this happy face, but it's okay to have challenges and it's okay to have those negative feelings. But sometimes that idea of just think positive, don't worry about it, focus on everything you're grateful for, it can kind of not really resonate when you're really going through something, right? So this idea of just manifesting because you're going to think positively, that doesn't really work without action steps. And also you have to recognize there's going to be challenges along the way. Any major goal that you have in your life, there's trepidation, there's stress, there's anxiety, there's feelings of self-doubt, right? And that's when you actually know it's a valuable goal. If everything was a smooth path, then it's probably not all that crucial or important. It's not going to make that big of a difference. And so I think that this is another shortcoming of traditional vision boards. It's like, okay, every day you're just going to look at this beautiful vision board and like one day it's going to happen. And that just doesn't really happen for most people. So I talked a little bit about the ignoring challenges piece as well. And I want to move on to a couple of other ideas about some issues with traditional vision boards. One is a lack of connection. So we have bucket lists, we have all these goals. Sometimes people around us maybe prompts us to develop these goals. But if it's not tethered to something that's truly important to you, if it's not anchored in your values, then you're going to miss the mark. It's going to be really hard to sustain that progress and that motivation, especially when things get tough. And also possibly a superficiality that's also related to that. Again, if you're not connected to values, you could just put something on a bucket list because it sounds cool or just because, and it's not actually connected to something that you truly find important. And then finally, possible misuse or inconsistency. You made this vision board, but you're not engaging with it. That's might be an issue. If you're not actually visiting with it, thinking about it, does this still apply to me today? That might cause it to be ineffective as well. And if it doesn't actually align with your current life circumstances, that's also challenging. So a lot of times people will do vision boards maybe like once a year. It's periodic, right? So how you feel and what's going on in your life in January might not reflect what's going on in March or June or September. And you still have this January vision board. And that whole feeling of self-shame comes again where it's September and you said, oh my gosh, like this, none of this happened, right? So I don't want people to use vision boards to beat themselves up. I actually want us to find different ways to use visualization and other strategies that we know are effective to help you to vision and manifest your goals. And so it's not easy as 1, 2, 3. There's 2 more steps. So it's easy as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But what we're going to do together, the first interactive activity we're going to do is a life at a glance assessment. Then we're going to move on to a SWOT analysis. Then we're going to learn this strategy called mental contrasting and implementation intentions. That's steps 3 and 4. That's a mouthful, but it is actually a really practical way to do visioning that leads to concrete steps of action. And it is essentially a not so well kept secret that athletes use, high performing professionals use. So we'll talk about that today and how to work on that. And then finally, your action plan. So I want you to turn to page 1 of your handout in your worksheets. There's a small packet of worksheets on your table. And what I want us to do is think a little bit about this idea. So we all have different aspects of our lives that are important to us. And every part of your life helps to shape the way you see the world and all of your experiences. And this can include things like school, family, work, physical health, and connection to your environment. All of these things play a role. They're all connected. So when something in one area changes, it can also affect other areas. And the wheel of life is actually a tool that's been around for 40 to 50 years. There's different ways that you can use the wheel of life, and there's been different adaptations of it. But it came from Paul Meyer, and it's a great tool for both adults and children to self-assess and identify areas of strength as well as areas for change. And this is actually a visualization tool. It shows you how the different areas in your life are linked. So here's what we're going to do. You're going to turn to page 1 in your worksheet. It's going to look like this. You have this little table there, and you're going to brainstorm 8 dimensions of life that are important to you. It can be anything, okay? So just let your imagination run free. It can be roles, areas of life, values, goals, careers, finances, health, mental health, social, romantic love, spirituality, personal growth, recreation, physical environment. Those are just some examples that you can pick from, but you do not have to limit yourself to those examples. Then you're going to think about each area on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being that you're most satisfied. That does not mean at all that this area is perfect for you. It just means that you feel satisfied about it. You feel good about it at this moment. Okay. So feel free to use the 10s. It doesn't mean that you don't have room for growth there. It just means that you're feeling pretty good about it. And 1 would be, wow, I'm not satisfied at all. I don't feel fulfilled at all in this area. So this is the first part of the exercise that we're going to do. And I just want to show you a couple of examples of what this might look like so that you kind of get a sense of what we're doing. So essentially, this is a chart where these are the 8 areas that this person chose. And then the outer circle means that it's a 10. And so basically they kind of just estimated where they are for each one, and they wrote the numbers also so that it can be clear. And then here's another example, slightly different domains. This person actually wrote the numbers right next to the pie chart like this. And you can just see again that a picture will emerge about which areas are areas of strength for you right now and areas of satisfaction. And then where is the attention needed? Where do I need the most attention? So I want you guys to work on this for a couple of minutes. And then I want you guys to talk a little bit within your table about what you guys are finding, but I have some specific questions to prompt that. So let's just start by spending a couple of minutes working on your own wheel of life, and then I will direct you to the next piece, okay? Okay. So I know you guys already jumped right in, which is perfect, but I put a couple of questions up here just so that you can kind of think through, but feel free to discuss at your table however you'd like. And if it feels a little bit overwhelming to discuss with 4 people, just pick one partner. You can just do a dyad. It's whatever is most comfortable and feels most natural for you at your table, okay? But some questions that you might think about is, which of these areas of life would you most like to improve? How are you currently spending your time in these areas? Which areas do you feel the best about? Why do you think a particular area is of higher or lower satisfaction? And if one area that has been consistently low was transformed to an 8 or a 10, what would your daily life look like? And then one last question, food for thought. What do you need from other people in order to improve this specific area? So again, these are just some questions for thought. You can use whatever questions you want to discuss at your table. And I'm here for questions. So take a little time to talk a little bit at the table, and then I'll check in with you in a few minutes. All right, guys, I'm going to bring you back. Thank you so much for participating in that. And this is Luca. This is my son. He's 25 months. Yeah. He's 25 months. And you love being in front of a stage, huh, baby? Yeah, this is a microphone. Yes, a microphone. You want to talk? Go ahead. What do you want to say? All right. Okay, you want to see if anybody has any questions or would like to share a little bit about their wheel of life and what you guys talked about at the table? And then Vanessa, do we have a different microphone that we were going to pass her? Oh, perfect. She has it. And so does Dr. Doran. So everyone's ready. Anyone want to share a little bit about how this activity felt to them, or what some reflections were that you guys had in your discussion? Anyone? Or any questions? Yeah, right there. What's your name?
Hi, I'm Jenny.
Hi, Jenny.
Hi. This is super interesting. So the questions that you have up here were really thought-provoking for me.
Good.
So I have romantic relationships, so 1 is like non-existent. Okay, fine, whatever. But when I look at these questions, it's really like, oh, well, so why is this area low? Right? Well, because I don't put as much effort into it as the other areas. And if it were a 10, what would my daily life look like? Oh,
Yeah.
that's like just, you
Mhm.
know? So to look at these in that light is really interesting and really like just thought provoking, makes me really, think where I wouldn't have thought before. I have a lot of excuses for things like, oh, but like maybe I don't need excuses. I just need to look at like this.
Yeah.
and tweak. So thank you for this.
Awesome. Oh, thank you so much, Jenny. Thanks for sharing. Anyone else? Thoughts, feedback, questions? Hi, what's your name?
Hi, I'm Lena.
Hi.
So I wanted to share about values specifically. I found it kind of hard, difficult to dissect what falls like, because for me, let's say spirituality, family, health, social, all fall under values. So it was a little bit hard to disassociate. But another thing also made me think about where do you fall short now? I always remember our esteemed Dean Majidi when he always taught us and remind us that life looks what you have today, or it looks like where you live now. So don't say that I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. When I graduate, I'm gonna strengthen this area. When I graduate, or when I just leave my work or move to another work, I'm gonna do another. So it's just know how to divide your time and manage your time perfectly, or not perfectly, good enough, so you can satisfy yourself the best way we can.
Oh, I
Thank
love
you.
that. Thank you so much for sharing, and such a great idea for practical mindfulness, right? That's kind of what we're talking about, is like, this is the present moment and what can we do today, as opposed to talking always in the future, because that also just leaves a bit of distance in terms of the action plan too. So I really appreciate you sharing that. Thank you guys so much for participating in that. So we're going to move forward into the next step. So we're going to be talking a little bit now through step 2, which is the SWOT analysis. So this is your second page. And most of you guys probably have heard of SWOT analysis or done something like this. These are more specifically tailored questions. And I wanted you guys to have the full experience, which is why this worksheet has several different questions in each of the areas. But essentially, now that you've thought about your life at a glance, using the wheel of life, we're going to move forward and just, keep thinking, because you already probably, the wheel's already turning about like, well, this is an area I want to work on. But before we actually get more specific with what that goal or those goals might be, I want us to take part in this SWOT analysis. It's going to really help us with some of the next steps as well. So a SWOT analysis is basically a consideration of strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. This can be done in a lot of different ways. It could be done for one single project. It can be done even in a relationship you have with someone. But right now, I really want you to think about some of these questions here. And again, this is for you to take with you. I understand that given the limits of time, you're not going to be able to really think through all of these questions in each category. But what I would like to ask you guys to do now at your table, and feel free to jot down notes if that works out well for you, or you can just discuss it right away. But just pick one question in each of the boxes to reflect upon. So you can pick, what are my unique skills and talents, from strengths? Or you can pick from weaknesses, are there habits or behaviors that hinder my personal growth? But essentially, at your table, I would just like you guys to reflect on one question together from each of these boxes. And you guys can all decide together, or somebody can just jump in and say, hey, why don't we talk about this one? So I'll give you guys a few minutes just to chat a little bit about these elements. Thank you guys so much for participating. So, anything new that you learned from your discussion? Something that you hadn't thought of before? Anything that you thought was interesting, a novel idea, something that you hadn't visited with in a while? Anyone?
I will share on behalf of our table.
All right.
We discuss the strengths, specifically the second one. What positive feedback do you often receive from others? And we shared what we all kind of do similarly is we have this file that we keep either electronically or a file folder of compliments that we've received from individuals. We all get them and we're like, oh, thank you so much. And then you move on. So we have this bank, if you will, that we put those in. And then on the rainy days, on the days when someone says something that wounds us, or we have imposter syndrome, we go back to that file, we read it. And sometimes when you hear the words from someone else, there's so much more weight that carries, instead of you trying to pick yourself up or remind you of those things. So we recommend that to anyone that may not have that. You can be a personal file, it can be a professional file. Sometimes they bleed into one another, but just having that so that you can pull on that for the times that it's needed.
I love that idea, Vanessa. And I think that even when it's coming from other people, I think as you mentioned in the beginning of at your when you were sharing that it's just it can be hard to kind of even register it. And if you're also having a day where maybe you're just being a little hard on yourself, it just kind of goes out the window. I mean, literally, we have such selective memories. It's so interesting how that happens. And so, almost kind of having this mental note of just write it down. Doesn't matter. You don't even have to think that it's true right now or think about how you're going to accept or not accept, but just have it written down, put it in a box, like put it in your journal, whatever. But later on, reflecting upon that and realizing that this is how others see you and this is your value and this is how you've contributed is huge. Thank you. Great
We've also
idea.
said it was good for when you have to do your annual review with the supervisor. It's almost like PR, like don't take my word for it. So and so said X, Y, and Z about me in this role or something of that nature. So
That's a good one. That's true. Oh, right behind you. We can go with you too. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, my name is Ferishte. I mean,
Hi.
I actually second that because I think, when I was sharing my strength, my friend said, "Oh, Ferishte, you are so goal oriented." That was kind of really insight for me because if I am goal oriented and then I review, yeah, I am goal oriented. So in the areas of my life that I want to improve, so I have to set goals because everybody sees me as goal oriented. You can accomplish whatever you put your mind on that. That was really for me interesting to something. Yeah,
Wow.
thank
Oh,
you.
that's very, very interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, like others' perceptions and how that links on to how you are going to accomplish something.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you. This might be a little extreme since we're over 70 up here. Okay, do I have a crowd back here? Yes. We're so service oriented here. You know, these two were talking about their volunteer experiences in the classroom with small kids. And then it bounced to me about I wrote my first book this year, and this one was saying to me, "Oh, I was reading your book and I picked this up and I said, yeah, and I'm about ready to set my goal to go live on social media this coming year." Now, last year, if I said that, I was very afraid, but now I'm ready, and I'm ready for another goal is to be open to companionship because for the past 50 years we've just been on the ground, work, 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 serve, serve. So I know you can relate, right? But now it's just time to like be at peace. Just be at peace with who you are and what you have, and not believe the lies that you're too old.
I love that. Yes. Your community hears you, Loretta. I love that. I like it. She's like, drop the mic. We're finished. But I love this idea of, you had other priorities before. And sometimes when that happens, you're not as open to other opportunities and other areas of life. And so, as you said, like having some peace and some self compassion and just being open to these new experiences. Love it. Love it. Preach, Loretta. Thank you so, so much for all of your sharing. Really, really appreciate it. Some great ideas, too. So we're going to move on to this next step. We're going to be doing some mental contrasting and implementation intention. So sounds fancy. It's not fancy. Mental contrasting and implementation intentions just means that you're going to visualize with purpose and action. So mental contrasting is going to help you to pinpoint what your values-based goal is, solidify your commitment, and identify trouble spots along the way. Implementation intentions, such a mouthful, but all it is if-then statements. And these if-then statements will create a specific path to success based on anticipating any potential barriers along the way and then creating that plan in advance. Because sometimes we get derailed when we come upon a barrier and that frustrates us, that derails us, that kind of defeats us, and then we don't move forward. So you have to kind of plan for this ahead of time before the barriers come up. And then it's like, hey, no big deal. I knew this was going to happen and I already have a plan. I have a recipe essentially to manage this right now. So I want us to start thinking a little bit about a goal based on your SWOT analysis and based on your wheel of life. And if we can just get this there we go. So this is my SMART goals with a twist. Most of you guys have heard of SMART goals. It's this acronym to try to help you lock in on how to goal set. But I think that it could use a little tweaking. So I changed a couple of the parts of the acronym. So S is still the same. It's a specific objective or task. M means that it should be measurable, right? Oftentimes we create these uh, goals for ourselves, and it's like this ever moving target that's ambiguous. Like you're always not doing as well as you could, but it's not defined, right? So you're never going to catch that level of whatever it was that you were aiming for because of how you discussed the goal. A is change. I changed it to be anchored in values. So, anchored in your top values. I know a lot of us have already been talking about values. So, really make sure that your goal is tethered to an important value to you. And then R is also changed. Sometimes we overcomplicate things. You know, we make to do lists with 10 columns. Like, who can follow that? So, it's really about reducing it only to the necessary components. And finally, T is the same, which means that you have to put some time base on it. Otherwise, it's a little hard. It kind of gets away from you. And before you know it, 9 months have passed and you haven't made the progress that you wanted. And we've all been there. So just a quick reminder, there are thousands of values, obviously, in the world. But here are 33 of the most common ones. You guys have already been talking about this at your tables, but I just want you guys to think a little bit about what your top 5 values are today as you're sitting here. Now, I know that the words are a little small, so you may not be able to see it very well. But if you can't see it, just think a little bit about what are your top values as you're sitting here today. Values meaning they're not things that you can check off like goals on a list, right? But they're things that you can choose in any given moment to either move towards and move in alignment with, or move away from, or not in alignment with, right? So examples are things like spirituality, knowledge, integrity, because you don't ever have too much integrity. You don't just check it off a list like you ran a 10K, right? So that's how you know that it's a value. It's kind of like a compass for life. So if you can't fully see the words, I saw that some people were taking pictures so they can like reference on their phone. That's perfect. Otherwise, just kind of think a little bit about what a value is based on the definition I gave. And there's no wrong answers. Two people can say that their value, one of their top values is integrity, but you can choose to live it different ways, right? Everybody defines things different ways too. Like, what is courage? Is courage, being willing to, climb the boulder of a mountain? Or is courage, speaking up when you know something doesn't feel right to you, right? Or both. So just talk a little bit among yourselves about what your top values are. And then I might ask a few of you guys to share what they are today too. Thank you. Awesome. So yeah, any thoughts? Do you have one? Okay, let me just make sure we have a microphone for you. And what's your name?
And thank you for your lecture. It
thank
was so profound.
Oh.
I suggest to add to these values tolerance,
Oh, absolutely.
because with emerging society 5, the citizen of society 5, they have to have 3 characteristics.
Mhm.
Technology, they should be equipped with technology, talent, and tolerance.
I love that. Oh, that's beautiful.
Thank you.
I'll definitely add it to one of the top value lists for sure. Thank you for the feedback. Anyone else? How did this go for you? Just kind of reflecting on your top values today. Hey, what's your name?
My name is Erica, and I put as my number 1 is courage, because I feel like I need courage to do all of the other values that are important to me. And even just speaking in front of all of you today, I need courage, and I have to remind myself that I can be brave and do things that scare me. And so some of the other values that are so important to me, I need courage to do them.
Oh, I love that. And thank you for speaking and living your value right now. So that's wonderful. Okay, well, now that we have our top value, one more person. Oh, perfect.
Hi,
We're coming. What's your name?
my name is Judy Copes,
Hi.
and I wrote down my 5 values, but then I thought about when my granddaughter, who's now in 1st grade, she learned in kindergarten, before you speak, is it kind? Is it necessary? And is it truthful?
I love that.
Those would be like my top.
Kind, necessary, and truthful, and thinking before you share something.
Exactly.
That's a very, very good practical advice that I am going to take to heart, certainly, because sometimes when we're under stress, things just come out, right? You just blurt it out and then you're like, oh man, why did I say it like that? So that's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. Well, that's beautiful, everyone. So we're going to move on. We're going to talk a little bit about this mental contrasting that we've been alluding to this whole time. Oh, it just went super fast. Let me just go back one. Here we go. All right. So now we're going to do a guided visualization exercise. We've had a lot of conversations about values and your SWOT analysis and your wheel of life. So hopefully you have maybe a wish or two in mind, maybe a goal. And I want you to choose something near and dear to you that you hope to achieve and something you truly believe that you can achieve if you tried, okay? So we're going to zero in on this. We're going to zero in on your belief in your ability to achieve this goal. How we're going to do this is you're going to rate your level of confidence in attaining this wish if you put your effort into it on a scale of 1 to 10. So 10 being, oh, I'm very confident that if I put my effort into it, I can reach this goal. And obviously, if it's a 0, that means even if I put my whole heart and effort into it, I don't think it's going to work. Try to think of a wish that you would rate on a confidence level of at least a 7. Again, the bar is, if I put my effort in, am I confident that I can do this? Okay, on a scale of 0 to 10. And now when you have your goal, just jot it down somewhere on your worksheet. Can be anywhere. Just jot it down. And along with your numeric rating of confidence. So this is going to be the third worksheet that we're referring to right now that says mental contrasting. So you can write the goal in the space and then write your rating. And again, hopefully it's like a 6 or a 7 or above, okay? And so now, hopefully you've been jotting down your goal. And for a few minutes, now that you have your goal written down, I want you to imagine this goal coming true, okay? Let your mind wander, enjoy the image, try to involve all your senses into this as you're thinking about it now. What would you feel like if you were able to reach this goal? What would be the most wonderful thing, the thing that you're looking forward to the most about achieving this goal? How would it feel when you achieved it? Write down the emotions, write down what you see, write down what you think your life would look like. Just jot down a few things right now that come to mind based on those questions. All right. Okay. So hopefully you had some time just to talk a little bit, think a little bit, jot down a few ideas. And now we're going to do the second part of visualization that's usually missing from most visualization activities. And it's one that probably people don't think about doing so much because it doesn't sound like as fun to do this type of visualization where you have to think about the barriers. But this is essentially what's missing oftentimes when we're talking about vision boards or positive thinking is we do have to think about potential barriers that might come up because we all might come up with those barriers. So now just imagine that your wish doesn't come true. I want you to spend a few minutes reflecting on why it didn't come true. What kinds of things might have interfered? Are there any obstacles that you can see in your environment, the people around you, or your own self, circumstances? Consider your SWOT analysis, perhaps, that got in the way of your goal. And what would you dread most if you never reached your goal? What would that feel like? So being as concrete as possible here is really helpful, and I'll explain why in just a little bit. But for now, write down a few things that come to mind from those questions. So what was that like doing this visualization exercise, especially with considering level of confidence to reach a goal? And what might it feel like if you didn't? What was that like? Any thoughts?
Hi, am I on? Yeah. Well, when I took the time to write it down, both how I would feel and what the obstacles were, I realized I have to do it. Like that the obstacles are nothing compared to how good it would feel. And my confidence rating was pretty high. Like if I just put in the time, I know I can do it. So it's just a matter of putting in the time. The barriers are only my own. And I can get over them. So,
Thank
so
you
there.
for sharing.
So I
What's
guess
your-
I'm going to do it.
Awesome. What's your name?
Jocelyn.
Jocelyn. Thank you, Jocelyn. And I appreciate your reflections about what worked for you. You know, this idea of, okay, I look back at the confidence level. This is something I could do if I tried. And then really the idea of mental contrasting is, as you just pointed out, contrasting between how good it would feel to reach the goal versus this isn't, yeah, I don't want this other side of it, and seeing what the barriers are and knowing that they're concrete. So that's great. Any other thoughts or feedback or questions about
Our
this?
table was on fire, so I'm going to let
Oh,
Monica share.
awesome. Oh, perfect.
Hi, I'm Monica. So happy to be here. Thank you guys and happy holidays. I was thinking about what my wish would be, and is it okay if I say the wish too? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, please.
Sure. So the wish is romantic partner because it's a 0 currently and it would be a 10. And I realized going through the evaluation and the mental contrasting that if I can secure a romantic partner, that all my values would be met. My challenges, my knowledge, intelligence, curiosity, that all those things would be fueled by this opportunity. And if I don't reach it, my life would stay at the status quo, which is very lonely, 0 shared experiences. I have a ton solo, and then minus the romantic love.
Thank you so much for sharing. And thank you for sharing the specific wish, because it really helps, I think, to solidify this exercise for people and understand how it applies to them as well. But I love that you said that this goal would essentially, it's like the thing that kind of pulls all your values together. That's why it's so important to you. And then thinking about the status quo, well, it's not really what I want. That's not the quality of life that I want, right? And that's huge. And you guys, thank you so much for rolling with my toddler today. I really appreciate it. He like really wants to participate, obviously. And Vanessa was so gracious to allow me to bring him in the first place. But actually, it became a necessity when my family members, who usually would help also to take care of him, got COVID last weekend. So we've been obviously isolating from them, and we don't have additional help today. So again, I just really appreciate you guys rolling with it and rolling with his participation. Now he's having a meltdown, see? Because I didn't really want him to. No, we're all looking at you. So thank you again for your grace and your compassion on that. Okay, so this was wonderful. We're going to move on to the next step. We're going to talk about this recipe card, this implementation intentions. What is it? Okay, so again, a mouthful, but it actually is just if-then statements. It's essentially now thinking about your mental contrasting and making if-then statements, essentially one for each of your identified barriers. And this is important because when we encounter challenges, at that moment, we may already be exhausted from the day. We may already be emotionally dysregulated. And at that time, it's a lot harder to make a thoughtful, helpful decision to keep moving forward, right? And so the reason why we do the mental contrasting is so that you have that information ahead of time. You know what the specific barriers are, and then you create these concrete, what I kind of call recipe cards. They kind of look like recipe cards. It's like, if this happens, then you do this step, right? So this is just an example of someone who's working on a project who is prone to procrastination. How many of us have been there? And you just got to be specific, right? So this first example, if I'm tempted to procrastinate on this project this morning while I'm at my desk, sounds really specific, but there's a reason for that, right? Because you want to know, okay, this is a situation I'm seeing, and this is all I have to do is just read what I've already written and do it, right? So then I'm going to set a timer for 25 minutes and just work on one aspect of the task until the timer goes off, right? A second one, if I'm tempted to organize my desk instead of work on this project, I love doing that. My house, if it's super clean, you know I'm not doing something important. Like if it's that clean, everything's sparkling, that means that I've been doing that. So I will call a colleague to do a 10-minute brainstorming session together instead. Third example, if I'm tempted to procrastinate this weekend during the time I set aside for my project, I'm going to get in my car, drive to a coffee shop where there are less distractions to work there for 1 hour, right? So this is the level of specificity we are looking for because, again, once you see that specific situation, there's no additional brainstorming. You just go back to what you wrote and just follow along. And that really helps when we're in the middle of something that's stressful. So I want you guys to take a couple of minutes now, talk amongst yourselves if that helps, or you can just write it down on your worksheet, the one that's titled Implementation Intentions. And I would love for you guys to have just a couple of if-thens. And right after that, we'll share a little bit, and then we're going to wrap up with the last step, okay? Thanks. Anyone willing to share one of their if-then statements? Anyone? Hi. Oh, wonderful. Thank you. What's your name?
I'm Jenny. So I have a whole bunch of them, but
Great.
let's see. Well, if I'm tempted to put my goals on the back burner, I will meditate for 5 minutes on my why and the ultimate feelings of success.
Oh, love that. That's great.
I can do
Very
more.
specific
Want
and
more?
like
I have more.
immediately to the point. Thank you so much for sharing again, Jenny. Others, anybody else want to share one? Yes. Oh,
Hi, I'm
sure.
Judy. This is gonna sound weird, but I'm attracted to snacks. So,
Doesn't sound weird at all. Doesn't sound weird at all.
and I hadn't thought of this before, but when I procrastinate on revising my draft that I'm working on, I'm just gonna put an apple or fruit or chips right in front of the computer, and I'll be attracted to going over there and turning on the computer so that I can munch.
I like that. That is thinking outside the box. I really enjoy that. Yeah, no, that is not weird at all that you're attracted to snacks. I literally just stand in my pantry and just, I mean, it's like 20 minutes a day. And now my son wants to do the same thing because he's like, oh, mama does that. So we have two here.
Yes, I do exactly implementation number 3.
Oh, okay.
When I want to focus something and do whatever I have to do and not procrastination it, I go to coffee shop.
It's the best,
No,
right?
yes,
There's
and
nothing
nobody
you can do.
get me, nobody can reach me, and
Yeah.
I turn off my phone. I do read a book, anything I want to do serious and just be by myself. I do
Yeah.
that, and it really works for me.
Oh, great. I love it. Such a timely thing too, because, we're all working from home to some degree now. And it feels great, but it also is just, it's so easy. I'm like going to start my dishwasher. I'm doing a load of laundry. And then before you know it, you're like doing something else. So
Yeah,
that's
it's a
great.
bit
I'm glad
crazy,
it
and
works for you.
nobody can reach you, and you cannot do anything. You just have to sit there, have
Yeah.
your coffee, and focus on your paper or
And that's
anything in
it.
front of you.
I love that. That's
Thank
great.
you.
Thank you
Thank you
for
for your-
sharing that it
thank
works
you.
for you. Yeah.
For example, one of my kind of obstacles is like fear of failure. Go to the
Uh-huh.
scenario of failure.
Right.
So, and I become so serious. I thought, okay, develop sense of humor, be humble.
Yes.
So this is kind of the contrast, mental contrast,
Yes.
just commitment,
Yes.
and no promise.
And having a sense of humor about it.
Yeah.
And you know what? Everybody fails, everybody makes mistakes. We all do, right? So it's almost
Yeah.
even reminding yourself of that and having an implementation intention written for that. Like, I'm going to remind myself
Yeah.
of this idea, or like, I'm just going to go read something funny. Just remind myself that it's okay to keep a sense of humor about all of it. I love that. Thank you for sharing. You guys have some great implementation intentions. Thank you. So this last step is going to be a worksheet that you can do to take home. So again, it's in your packet. And essentially, this is the idea of the revised R of SMART. Like, let's just boil it down to the necessary ingredients: the action, the deadline, what skill or knowledge do you need, what support or assistance do you need, and what resource do you need? And then just making sure that everything can be written down in a very specific way, especially now that you've gone through this whole path of doing all these other exercises. Hopefully, now that you're arriving at the action plan, it's going to get really specific and really easy to implement. And that's really my biggest wish for all of you. I want to thank you so much for participating and for engaging and for giving each other these wonderful ideas that you've shared. And the last little gift I'll leave you with is my mental health advent calendar. I put one of these together every year. And obviously, I know we are on day 15 already. 14. It's a little bit off, huh? But essentially, you can start on any day, right? So you can start with what's written on day 1 today. So feel free to utilize this, share with anybody else that you might think could benefit. But each of these activities, some of them take less than a minute. So we all have time for self-care. We all have time to recharge. And it's a great time of the year as we're wrapping up the year and thinking about 2024 to really start a routine, a new routine, to put your mind in a helpful place to reach the goals that you have, whatever they are, in this new year. So thank you so much, all of you, for your attention and for coming today.
Great. Wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Judy, for all of these just nuggets of wisdom and the space to work it out amongst one another. And we're going to all take this at the tables, everything that was percolating. And I want to wish you all the veriest Merry Christmas. And I know that you'll be working on these things as we step into January. So do keep in touch with this paperwork. I'm going to send you a digital copy of it so you can continue to work through it, not just for December and not just for January, but we'll continue to move on. And we will be here as a group, Lifelong Learning, for you in 2024. So we will gather again in February. So you will all get the email and the invitation. So I do invite you back. But before we break, I just want to thank again the Don Huckle family for opening up their home. I want to thank each of you for what you do to make it here. This is no easy task to get out to the Palisades and carve away time, but I know that it's valuable. So enjoy that. Be blessed by that. And Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. We'll see you in February. Bye-bye.